Hello guys, welcome to the second day of Master Days 2019 event. It's so nice to have you all here with us today, both Lithuanians and Polish people. If my face is not familiar for you from previous Kastu events, my name is Rosa, and today I will be hosting a webinar with University of Southern Denmark. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our guest from this university, Yannick Schulte. Yannick, could you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Nice to have you here, and nice for inviting me to speak here. My name is Yannick, and I am a master student in something called Innovation and Business here at SCU in Sønderborg. Most of you people probably don't know Sønderborg, but it's in the very, very far south of Denmark. And I also studied my full bachelor here, so I think I have a pretty good grasp on why this is a great university to go to for your master, because obviously I apparently liked it that much that I stayed for 2 years more. And so I'd be looking forward to be introducing you to what we can offer here and all the great things that you could experience in Denmark.
Thank you, Yannick. And so in the next 45 to 50 minutes, you will hear everything about studies in Denmark and studies in University of Southern Denmark from Yannick's perspective. And if you're watching this webinar live, you are also able to ask us some questions, which we will answer at the end of this webinar. So stay tuned. And you will find the questions tab on the right of your screen. So don't hesitate to ask anything you want. And so I think we can start with our presentation. Yannick, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so stage is yours.
All right, let me start the presentation up here real quick. All right, here we go. As I said again, welcome everybody. It's nice to have you. I'll go over some different talking points about my experience for studying in Denmark throughout the next 40 minutes. Oops. Yeah, the presentation is a little bit messed up.
It's the end of the slide, so I will just turn on the...
Perfect. Thank you for paying attention to that. All right, here we go. I'm going to go over some of the different topics that you just saw a nice sneak peek of. If you already have any questions during my speech, please just write something in the right-hand side on the chat box, because it would be nice to already answer questions while I talk about the topic that you maybe have a question to. So don't hesitate to put anything in there, and we will see to get to that. But yeah, I'll start with a little bit about myself and why I actually came to study in Denmark. So first of all, again, my name is Yannick, and I was originally coming from Hamburg in Germany. So I finished my high school diploma at some point close to Hamburg, and then, like any other person, I was standing in front of the dilemma of what I wanted to study. And at that point, I wasn't really sure at all about what I wanted to do with my life and where I wanted to move and what to do. And so, as many people do while choosing something at that time in their life, I listened to my parents and started studying business administration in Hamburg. And in the beginning, I thought it was great, but after about the first couple of months, I noticed that it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a little bit more of the technical field as well, and I wasn't really happy in what I was doing. And so at some point, I asked a friend of mine that I finished high school together with if he would be willing to move to Denmark together with me after finding out about something called the study of innovation and business that was offered at SCU. And thankfully, he immediately said yes. And we both canceled our studies that we had going on at that point in Hamburg, and we moved to Sønderborg together. I'll show you in a second where Sønderborg actually is, so that you have a little overview of what's going on. But yeah, what I decided to study was something called innovation and business, which is basically 1/3 business administration, 1/3 engineering, and 1/3 of innovation management. So quite a broad subject area, and that was exactly what I was looking for. And I was very happy that I found this. Initially, I went to something they called the study tryout day, where you could actually go to the university for a day and just try out how it is to study and get to hear about all sorts of different experiences. And that is what I did, and that is what finally convinced me to actually move to Denmark. But yeah, so now I still live in Sønderborg after I finished my bachelor, and I'm now in the first year of my master's degree. By now I'm 24 years old, and I think we'll move on to where Sønderborg actually is. So over here you can see a very broad overview of the beautiful state of Denmark. I hope all of you know where Denmark actually is. That would be a little bit of a prerequisite for maybe studying in Denmark. But then here you can see the different locations that we actually have campuses in from the University of Southern Denmark. As you can see, and as the name of University of Southern Denmark would imply, we mostly have campuses in the south of Denmark. So we have 6 campuses spread over the south of Denmark. That's in Copenhagen, Slagelse, Odense, Kolding, Esbjerg, and Sønderborg. So Sønderborg, as you can see, is the very, very lower campus that you can see here. And I see that the light just turned off, so I'll quickly turn the light back on. Oh. All right, the light is back on, and we are ready to go again. As I was saying, is that we have these 6 different campuses. Sønderborg in the very south, right next to the German border, as you can see. And all of these campuses kind of have different areas they focus on. So our main campus, where most of our students actually are, is in Odense, as you can see in the middle of Denmark, about on the island of Fyn. And there we have about 20,000 of our 30,000 students. So that is exactly what you can look forward to if you come here. But then, of course, we also have some smaller campuses spread around, and most of them are around 2,000 to 3,000 students, and they have kind of focuses on some different things. For example, in Kolding, we have a focus on robotics. In Sønderborg, we have a focus on engineering and innovations and startups and something like that. Whereas in Esbjerg, focus more on health and public health and all kinds of studies that go into that direction. So now I would just like to show you what it's like in Sønderborg, because I have been studying on the Sønderborg campus for the longest time now. But all of these facilities that I'll show you in a second, and all the things that I'm going to say about studying in Sønderborg, of course, also applies to most of the other locations of the SCU. So don't think that this is only a representation of exactly the place I study at, but this is actually pretty similar across all the different locations. The beautiful thing about the SCU in Sønderborg, though, is that we are directly at the waterfront. So as you can see here on this beautiful picture, is that the university is actually right at the Baltic Sea, and you have an absolutely stunning view from most of the classrooms. The university is divided into these different blocks, as you can see. And if you count from the left-hand side, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks, that is actually the university. So that is where we have our meeting rooms, our lecture halls, where the cafeteria is. The cafeteria is in the big one right in the middle. And also where we have all the other facilities that we have, like our labs, electronic labs and clean rooms and stuff like that. And then the next 4 blocks on the right-hand side, that is the so-called Forskerparken in Danish, which roughly translate to Scientist Park, and that is where a lot of local companies actually have a little office where most of their research and development units sit. So it is very, very nice for lots of projects that you do together with these companies, that they do actually sit in the same building. So instead of having to drive somewhere for a meeting, you can just get out of your room you're working on, walk right over to these companies and be in a really nice discourse with them immediately. And this is also the foundation of what studying in Denmark really is like, is that all the things that you learn are immediately put into practice. So you will never learn something in any of your courses that you will not use in the same semester. So the way this is usually done is that you have your courses spread up. So most of the ECTS points that you have to collect during the semester would actually be normal courses, probably just as you're used to. And then maybe a third of them are reserved for a big project, and that is usually referred to as a semester project, where you work either in your own team or together with a local company or in cross-disciplinary teams with other study programs together to exactly put the skills that you learned into practice to actually, for example, build a robot for a certain company, or optimize some company's production layout, or come up with your own startup idea and work on that during the semester. So that is really one of the foundations of what it's like to study in Denmark. All the things that you learned are immediately in the same semester put into practice. And that is one of the things that I really enjoy about studying here, that you can immediately use all of the knowledge that you gain and really see if you actually understood it. And that also makes the learning experience, of course, way easier, because you don't have this typical learning experience where you'll learn a lot in a course, and then at some point it's exam time, and you'll have to cram everything in your head right before the exam, and then after that it's gone. No, because you can't do that, because during the semester you'll have to immediately apply the things. So you can't just not pay attention to the course, because then in the, for example, company project, you won't be able to deliver what you're supposed to deliver, or you won't be able to keep up with your teammates. And it is not something that you have to actually try actively, but it's something that just completely happens automatically, and you'll only notice after the first couple of semesters that your learning experience really changed to comparing to what you were doing beforehand. At least that is the case for me. But look a little bit more about the different, or at the different facilities we have. So here you can see the inside of the main block that you just saw in the middle. The middle is reserved for the cafeteria and has this nice open area. Of course, here we also have some beautiful trees in our university for some reason. But in general, all the facilities of the SDU are built in a very nice and open style that really makes you feel like you want to be at university. There is no dark or cramped corner anywhere, but all of the buildings are pretty new and designed in such a way that it always feels welcoming and nice to be at university. And that is also what the university wants to achieve. They want you to spend some of the time that you would normally, for example, spend at home learning in the university to interact with some of the other students, so that you have an active learning experience together with them. And also for all kinds of other things that you would want to do, for example, in your free time, the university really promotes that everybody can use these facilities at any time. So if you, for example, wanted to use the electronics lab in the middle of the night on a Saturday evening because you want to do some personal project, then that is absolutely something you can do. All the students have access to all the facilities around the clock, so there is no borders for what you are able to achieve and when you want to do it. Here we have a top-down view of what I was talking about beforehand. You can see those nice trees down there again and the cafeteria area. And the focus here is on the nice, beautiful red box, as we call it, which is some very, very nice meeting rooms that we have, and also semester project rooms. Because one thing about the semester projects I just told you about is that every single group, the group gets, of course, set at the beginning of the project, gets a distinct project room for each semester. So let's say you work together with 5 other students on a certain idea, and you want a space to do that without anybody else using that room or interfering with whatever you want to put into your room. Then at the beginning of the semester, you would get a project room like this. And for example, in this red box, you can see there's 4 different rooms in there, and you would get maybe one of these and actually keep it for the full semester. So there's nobody else using the room. You can leave all your stuff there, and it's all going to be just fine. Also, you have complete control over how, for example, you want to design your project room. So if you decide that the desk and chairs in there are a waste of space and you want a couch and beanbags instead, then that is completely something that you're free to do. You can do with that room whatever you want, short of destroying it in that semester. Of course, we also have the same beautiful room in yellow. So there is some more meeting rooms and semester project rooms, but we also have some classrooms that look like this, which is really something the university promotes as well, to have classrooms that are somewhat stimulating to the students. So you'll find another example of that later, where there's alternative ways of alternative ways to the standard methods of one person speaking in the front and everybody else sitting in the back and listening. So here we can see the entrance to the Forskerparken or Scientist Park, where the companies actually have their R&D departments, as I just told you about. And on the left-hand side, you can see another nice thing about studying at this university, which is a concert hall. So the shiny silver thing on the left-hand side is the entrance to a beautiful big concert hall, where there's all sorts of great cultural activities going on all the time. And of course, as a student at the university, you have free access to all of these. So that is really something that really adds a lot of benefits for the students, because whatever it is that is happening there, you can just go in there and sit in there for free and experience the great cultural possibilities that are here in Sønderborg as well. And back in the Forskerparken, we also have something that is a very, very great opportunity, is that we have a startup accelerator. So if you during your master studies maybe have a nice idea together with some of your classmates, or you always had this one idea that you wanted to put into action, then the university would actually help you massively in trying to achieve your goals and in bringing whatever idea you have to the market. And that is done in the startup accelerator. So you would most likely go there and present your idea. And if you get accepted, they'll give you a free office and all the free mentoring and resources that you could ever need. And this is another effort of the university to push student entrepreneurship and really help students in realizing their dreams in whatever their dreams might be. And we've just been out there with our study the other day. And it really is a very start-up-y atmosphere, you could say. And I can just see that there's a question coming in here from Simas at how many students are typically in one class. And that depends a little bit on the study program. But usually you would have around 20 to 30 people in a master program. So in the bachelor programs, you usually have between 40 and 50 people. And in the master programs, anywhere from 20 or 15 to 30. And that is about the study size. Usually it doesn't go over the 30, just not more people are accepted, because the university really wants to promote a close learning experience between the students and the professors, so that you can at any time go up to the professor and ask him persons questionally. All the professors are referred to on a first name basis in Denmark, and it is really a great personal experience. And then there's another question from Carol about what the costs of living in Sønderborg compared to other cities in Ikea. I'll get into that a little bit later. I have a separate section about living in Denmark and the costs associated and how to deal with that. Simas, if I didn't answer your question completely, please don't hesitate to ask additional ones. We can always get back into this. All right, then a little bit about maybe the social life that is happening outside of university as well. So Sønderborg is a relatively small town of around 30,000 people. And as I said, we have around 2,000 to 3,000 students here. So of course it is not the biggest student town, but there is still plenty of action to be had. This picture here is taken out in front of the university, where we have beautiful areas to do whatever you so desire. So here again, you can see that it's right at the waterfront, and most students in the summertime, for example, for group work, go out onto these green areas to enjoy the sun and be in that kind of atmosphere. And the university in Denmark is also really a big meeting point for social life. So often if you would want to meet up with your friends or go out to town afterwards or go to the beach or anything like that, it would always usually start from university, because the university is right in the middle of the city. It is a really central place, and it's usually what all social activities revolve around. This is also especially emphasized by some of the great student-run organizations that we have, that I'll also get into a little bit later. Back from the social life a little bit and back to the facilities. What you can see here is a clean room that we have on our university grounds. So this is one of the highest level clean rooms that can be achieved. Probably all biology or chemistry students would know what this is about. And we have all sorts of highly specialized facilities like these in the university. So we, for example, have this clean room. We have an electronics lab. We have a nanotechnology lab. And we have a workshop, and all of these different laboratories have distinct employees that are just there to help you with whatever you want to do. For example, if you have an idea and you need help from the electronics lab, you would go there, and there's a very, very nice person there, permanently employed to just help you with whatever question you might have. And that also, for example, includes ordering parts. So if you needed any parts for any special project, you would go there and order a certain part for whatever you wanted to do, and that part would usually be there the next day. That, for example, also applies to the workshop. We have a workshop with all the latest cutting-edge equipment like 3D printers, laser cutters, lathes, rotary lathe, and all sorts of good stuff like that. And all these facilities are, of course, for you to use, but there's also 3 employees in the workshop that will perform tasks for you. So, for example, if you are a little bit tight on time in the project and you need a certain part manufactured in order to make whatever you want to do work, then you could order that part to be made in the workshop, and these 3 lovely guys down in the workshop would actually produce this part for you. Of course, if you arrive way too late, then they might also not be able to help you, but usually these guys are able to help you with any sort of problem of mechanical nature that you might have. And this is the kind of the same experience in all the facilities of the SDU. So you are allowed to use all of these things non-stop. So even if you want to 3D print something for your personal interest, then that is totally fine. It is all about the learning experience and trying to use these tools to get better with them and to build proficiency. All right, I mentioned earlier that we had some more alternative classrooms. This is one of them. This is actually where I spend most of my time. This is the distinct classroom of the Master of Innovation and Business, and it's what we call the igloo. So it basically has 4 screens in the middle, and then people sit around in a ring so that everybody can look at each other. And what is really great about this space is that it really promotes discourse between the teaching staff, but also between the students. So a lecture in Denmark is never going to be just one person standing in the front, talking non-stop, everybody listening and going home afterwards, but there's always going to be some sort of discussion or discourse going on in order to help with the learning experience. And we have different sorts of these sorts of classrooms. Some are very creative, and it really is a very different atmosphere to studying in a classic setting. Right, here you can see one of the project rooms I was talking about earlier. So this is apparently 4 man and girl team of a semester project, and they decided to put beautiful post-its all over their room. But this again just highlights that you, with your room, are allowed to do whatever you want, and all the students are going to get their distinct room. So as I said earlier, if you wanted to put a fridge and a microwave in there, that is something a lot of students do, then go right ahead and do that. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Now we are finally back to the social life I already wanted to talk about earlier. The social life is, of course, always the most important thing about studying in a new town. And Singapore really has very, very distinct and various amounts of social opportunities to offer. Of course, as it is a maritime town, so we're right at the Baltic Sea, it has a very maritime flair to it. So, for example, this little row of bars that you can see up in the upper left corner is directly at the waterfront, and all of these different restaurants and bars and other local business are really trying to promote their opening for students. So you would usually in all of these find a very, very affordable student deal for a beer or a burger or whatever you wanted to get. Although only 3,000 of the 30,000 inhabitants are students, it is still very much a student town, because the center of the city is basically just students. And this is also exactly the vibe that you get if you go out to town, for example, at a Friday evening. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see something that we call cafe, and it is a student-run bar that is actually in the university. So in the university, there's a group of students that self-elect somebody to lead them, and also self-elect new members that is in charge of running the student bar. We just had a nice redesign at the beginning of this semester, and it really is a nice place. This student bar opens up every single Friday evening, and offers very, very competitive prices on most alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages of your choice, and is really the top meeting place for most of the students. So you'll find most of your classmates there on a Friday evening, and even if you're not that much into the partying atmosphere, usually they open up a lot earlier in the afternoon as well, and host all kinds of activities such as board game nights and stuff like that. But this student bar is really what most of the nightlife revolves around, and then the rest of the nightlife happens in the rest of the town. So we have 3 or 4 bars that are completely focused on students, and then also we have 2 clubs that are offering free entrance for students at SCU. So there is enough to go out and have a nice evening with your friends, and especially as these are catered towards students, it actually has pretty affordable prices. In general, of course, things like alcohol are a little bit more expensive in Denmark, but if you go out to places that are catered towards students, this can be a little bit negated. On the right-hand side, you can see the vast opportunities of water sports that Denmark has to offer. Sønderborg is an area that lies on an island. So Sønderborg is actually on the island of Als, and as it is an island completely surrounded by water and small lagoons and fjords and all that sort of stuff. And of course, with that, there's some great water sport opportunities, not only for kayaking and stand-up paddling and things like that, but also for a lot of wind-related sports like windsurfing and kitesurfing and sailing. So especially for sailing and kitesurfing, there's a big community in Sønderborg where lots of the students participate in that. For all of these, there's special student classes and ways of getting into these sports, and it's really something that a lot of people move to Sønderborg for. It is relatively windy, so for these sports you always have pretty good conditions, and it is really also a super good area to learn these sports. So if you're saying that you always wanted to get into sailing, windsurfing, or kitesurfing at some point in your life, then maybe with moving to Denmark, that is exactly what you could now do. Now let's talk a little bit about what it's like to start studying in Denmark. Of course, most of you would leave their home behind to come to the far lands of Denmark, and most people actually do that alone. Of course, at everybody's mind is, what is the start going to be like? How am I going to make friends? How am I going to find myself into university life? And what exactly what exactly can the university offer to ease this sort of transition? And especially for this question, we have a dedicated team of students at the university, and they call themselves the intro team. So they are responsible of trying to introduce you to the study life. Most of the students moving to Denmark usually move in around 2 or 1 weeks before study start. The study start is at the 1st of September, and so 1 or 2 weeks before that is usually when people move in. And that is also where the first activities geared towards trying to get you introduced into the Danish cultures are starting. So there's all sorts of activities organized by the intro team to achieve that goal. So that ranges from all sorts of sport activities and beach visits and day trips to visit, for example, the capital and all sorts of stuff like that. but also to lots of other events, as for example, our dorm race that is going to happen at the start of every single semester, where you're going to get introduced to all the different dorms that are around Singapore. And there's a little party happening at every single dorm, and then you'll drive by bike from dorm to dorm to dorm. And that is kind of what the evening looks like. We also have a pub crawl that is happening in the beginning of the semester. And then we have the infamous intro tour, which is usually happening 2 weeks after study start. It is a tour only for new students that happens over the weekend to a secret location that nobody knows. And this tour is usually where most friendships are made. I think I haven't met anybody yet that moved to Denmark and didn't participate in this tour and didn't like it. And usually everybody who comes back from that made at least 1 or 2 new friends. And if that isn't enough, then we also have events that keep on running during the semester, which are intro parties. So every month there's usually a distinct party for meeting new people and introducing you to different locations. And that is, of course, another option for getting into the rhythm real quick. But these beautiful people that you see up in the right-hand corner from the intro team are not only there for organizing all these events, but they are also there for being a personal help for you while starting to study in Denmark. So if you have any questions, or you don't know your way around, or you don't know where to go, you don't know where to get, for example, new furniture for your apartment, or whatever situation you might run in, these students are paid by the university to help you ease into the living in Denmark. So don't be afraid of coming here alone. There is all the help that you could ever need in order to get started in a good fashion. All right, now, Carol, we're going to come back to the living situation in Denmark. And I'm also going to say something about the financials a little bit later. The nice thing about coming here to SU in Denmark is that you have a guaranteed place in the dorm. So you don't need to be worrying about whether you'll find accommodation or not, but every single student who gets accepted to one of the study lines automatically has a place guaranteed. And for example, in Singapore, we have around 6 different student dorms that are all very, very close to the city center and all very, very close to each other. That offer very, very great accommodation at a fair price. So usually if you would want to move into a single apartment where you have a studio apartment with 1 big room, your own kitchen and your own bathroom, you would pay anywhere between 250 and 350 euros per month, depending on what dorm you choose. So it is a really, really affordable and substituted way of living in Denmark. These prices are not comparable to as if you were looking for something privately in town. That is most of the times quite a bit more expensive because the university is putting quite a bit of money towards you being able to study here and afford the living situation. So there's different kinds of room in most of the rooms in most of the dorms. As I said, the single room is probably going to run you between 250 and 350 euros. But then there's also bigger apartments with maybe 2 own rooms and a bigger kitchen that would be a little bit more expensive. There you would usually pay between 400 and 500 euros. And then there's also a new dorm that just opened up that is right at the waterside and has balconies out right to the Baltic Sea. Which of course is a little bit more pricier. There you would pay around 600 to 700 euros for a single dorm room. Then there's also accommodation for multiple people. So if you want to move in together with a friend, or maybe you already know somebody who is going to Denmark as well, then it's also a good option to move in together. There's 2-person accommodations where you would each also pay between 250 and 350 euros. And most of these accommodations are a little bit bigger than the single ones for 2 people, of course. And that makes for a great living experience as well. So if you come to Denmark, you have a guaranteed place in one of these dorm rooms. And the university really makes sure that everybody finds an affordable place to live. So if you initially get offered one of the more expensive rooms and you say that, hey, I would like to maybe move into one of the cheaper rooms, then that is always something that can be accommodated for. There is more than enough space in all the dorms for everybody who wants to study here. What some people then tend to do is that after living in the dorms for maybe a year or two, they get a new circle of friends and they get to know some new people. And then they maybe get together with 3 or 4 or 5 friends, and they maybe find a big apartment that they find privately in town. So of course you all can go around and find something from the very beginning on. But as I said, that would be a little bit more pricier. But with 4 or 5 other students together, there are some really nice and big apartments in town that then become very affordable and are kind of on the same price level as the dorms. So if you have any additional questions to the dorm life and what it's like, then just put some questions into the chat box, then we can get right to that. But unless there are no more questions right now, I'll go on to some of the nitty-gritty of insurances and financing, because of course everybody's thinking about how am I going to finance living in Denmark. And truth be told, living in Denmark is a little bit more expensive than living in Germany, where I come from, or in your case, Lithuania or Poland. The average living cost in comparison to Germany is about 30% more expensive. So that is really something that everybody has to keep in mind. But there is great support from the Danish state and the university for affording this, and we're going to look at that in just a second. But beforehand, just let's quickly look at the social security that you're going to get offered, of course, if you are a resident in Denmark. And the light is turning off again, so I will quickly turn the light back on. All right, we got the light back. Where was I? Oh, social security in Denmark. If you are a resident, so you get a resident permit as soon as you're a student, you of course are also fully applicable for the social security programs. How that works is that you're going to be issued something we call a CPR number in Denmark, which is basically just a social security number. And this number at the same time functions as your health card and health insurance. So the Danish state has 3 health insurance for every single person living in Denmark. So you do not need to take out an additional health insurance that you maybe would have at home. But if you come here just by living in Denmark, you get free health insurance, and with your CPR number and your health card, you can go to your doctor at any time and get free healthcare without a problem. So that is something from the financial struggles that you can already eliminate. And then let's get into financing. First of all, there's something really, really great in Denmark that is called SU. And SU is a short form for a very, very complicated Danish word that I cannot pronounce. But what it basically is free money to live for every single Danish student. Now, the important part here is Danish student, because every single person born in Denmark, as soon as they start studying, gets paid by the Danish state around 800 euros per month for studying. This, of course, promotes that no matter from what financial background you come, no matter how wealthy your family is, that everybody has the same chances and that everybody is able to afford to study. Of course, this is a very, very great thing, and is something that I think we should all agree on to have in all of the European countries. But the full benefits are only reserved for students that were born in Denmark. But there is also another options for students from outside of Denmark to access the same money as well. So as I said again, it's about 800 euros per month. You do not need to pay it back. It's not a grant or loan or anything. It is just for you to study. And the way we as foreign students can access this is by working for 10 or more hours per week. So what the Danish state here kind of said is that we have this great support for students, but we want to see from foreign students that they are actually serious about being in Denmark and want to contribute to Danish society. So if you find a job here and you work for 10 hours or more, you will not only, of course, be paid for your job, but on top of that, you'll also get these roughly 800 euros per month for free on top. And that, of course, is a really, really, really good deal. Deal actually too good to pass up on. And that is exactly why most of the foreign students who come here look for a study job pretty much immediately. And there's lots of great study jobs around, and the study is set up in such a way that it's actually designed for you to be working next to your study on this around 10-hour basis. 8 to 10 hours is what usually the people do. And as soon as you do this, you qualify for SU and can get this extra money. Then, of course, you also have to take into account that a student job in Denmark pays radically much more than it would do in Germany or Lithuania in this case. For example, for a normal master level student job, you can expect between 150 and 200 crowns per hour. So that is around 20 to 30 euros per hour for a student job like that. And most foreign students find that in combination with a student job like that and the SU grant, that people are more than able to afford living in Denmark. There is really no shortage of money if you try to go the study job route. You will have enough money to pay for your accommodation, for the student cafeteria, you'll have enough money to go out, and you'll have enough money to left over to go traveling every now and then or do whatever you want to do. On top of that, with Sønderborg, where I study, being right next to the German border, you have the added benefit of that you can do your big shopping trips over the border in Germany and then actually come back to Denmark to take advantage of that. So I see that there's a question here. Do you have this part-time job? Yes, I do have this part-time job. Actually, what I'm doing right now is my part-time job. So I work for the university in attracting new students, and exactly with doing webinars like these or going to fairs and all kinds of stuff like that. That is how I finance my stay here in Denmark. And the university has quite a few different jobs to offer. And even if you might not find a job immediately, we have something called the SU Job Bank, so an online portal from the university that is trying to match you with all the local companies that we have here. So as far as I think, as I've seen, every single person who has been looking for a job here has also already found one. So how often do master students find a part-time related to their studies while studying? I think that most of the master students actually find something that is related to their studies. Most of my classmates actually study, of course, study the same as me, but also work in local companies in the same kind of area as their studies. So whereas bachelor students in the study jobs would most of the time go for more classical student jobs like bartending or cleaning or stuff like that, usually master students would go for a job with some of the great local companies to do something to already build up their CV and build some experience in whatever their field is. And one great thing about that is also that all the Danish companies in this area, they have English as a daily business language, so you don't even need Danish skills to be working in these companies. Your English skills are going to be just fine. I hope that answered your question sufficiently. And finally, I think I've come pretty much to the end of what I wanted to say. Of course, I would hope to see as many of you next study start in Denmark. If you have any questions to any special things or about my study program or whatever is going on, then it is totally fine that you just send me an email or contact me on Skype or Facebook. And I'd be happy to help you myself or pass you on to somebody who is studying whatever you want to study, so you can get exactly the information that you want. I know that I went over quite a broad range of topics in this presentation, but I still hope that it gave you a good overview of what it's like to study in Denmark and what you can somewhat expect. And I think we have some time for more questions right now. So just shoot away with the questions, and yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Yannick, for a very interesting presentation. Let's see if we will have more questions. And guys who are watching this webinar recording after, feel free to contact your local Kastu team and ask anything you want. And we can always give you Yannick contacts if you want to contact him directly. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask questions.
I just posted my email address into the chat so that if you have any other questions that you come up with in the next couple of days, just send me an email and I'll try to find somebody who can answer it or answer it myself. All right, we have one more question here, I see. So regarding to your study program, which one is more technical, product development or innovation and business? Product development and innovation or business innovation? I'd say they're about at the same level, actually. Product development innovation is more focused on some design aspects as well. So you also learn more about product design and how it is, how usually the product development process is done. Whereas in innovation and business, you'll get a little bit of a broader overview from the very, very start. So from the first idea, how to find the idea, the inception of a company, funding, how to build your prototype, how to market it, and how to finally grow a successful business. So I think none of them is really more technical than the other one. If I had to go for one, I'd say that product development and innovation is a little bit more technical because it really focuses a bit more onto just the product development, whereas innovation and business is in a little bit more of a broader context, as I said. I hope that answered your question. If you have more, just ask away.
I think that's all with the questions. So if there's anything else, feel free to contact Yannick or Kastu team. And a short information for those who had registered to Skype interviews with Yannick. He will contact you shortly after this webinar, so be prepared. Yeah. And I think our webinar is coming to the end. And thanks guys for watching. Thank you, Yannick, for a very interesting presentation. And see you guys in the next webinars, I guess. Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.